So let's talk about Jayden Daniels. But before we say a darn word about that man, let's show. We may get copyrighted. Who the heck cares? Let's show the play of the year that gave Washington a come from behind. Ugly win, but a win is a win is a win against the Chicago Bears. Take it away, Jim Nance.
Comes down to one last play. And it's going to be getting longer by the second. You're all the way back at the 30-yard line. Now you can step into it. Here comes the Hail Mary with the game on the line. And the ball's caught! Caught! It's a miracle! It's Noah Brown! Oh my goodness! This town is going crazy.
Listen, I almost fell to the floor when I saw it, just out of pure shock. And listen, I took the Bears because I didn't think Jayden Daniels was going to play. The Vegas line stayed at Bears -3 the entire week. So I'm like, okay, because Jayden Daniels, for those didn't know, cracked his ribs early on last week against Carolina. And it's like, gosh darn, man, this just robbed us of Caleb versus Jayden. And even if Jayden did play, which he did, and kudos to him for putting together a valiant effort and outplaying Caleb, there's no question about that. It was far for a pretty game. 18-15 was your final score for Washington. We'll touch on Chicago afterwards, but for Washington, so they're 6-2. They're one of the best offenses of football. All of a sudden, now you can throw it out last week against Carolina, which you should. That Carolina's the worst team in football, but they give up the defense that has not been good through the course of the season. All of a sudden, 3 points given up last week. Well, it's Carolina. It's okay, whatever. Carolina doesn't score a whole lot of points. But then 15 to a Chicago Bears offense off of a bye week against a Caleb Williams who had been lighting the world on fire the last 3 games. Pass rating of 100, last 3 games prior to this one. So Washington's defense appears to have gotten better. Now, I will say this. The Bears' lack of offensive production to me was twofold in the sense that, A, Caleb missed some deep balls. Like, Caleb has got to get a more consistent deep ball with guys like DJ Moore, guys like Keenan Allen and company. But also, too, Caleb was running for his freaking life. Now, some of that is a credit to the Commanders' defensive line for getting to them. But I think Jonathan Allen's hurt. Like, man, they're dealing with some serious injuries in that defensive line, and they still got to Caleb. Some of that is the Bears' O-line just plain isn't that good. It's just not. But with that said, for Washington, and I said coming into the season, Washington was my Denver equivalent in the NFC. Like I said, Denver, I said, folks, you're not going to believe me. This is an 8-win team that could vie for a playoff spot potentially and then come up short in week 17, week 18. But Bo Nix, who I wasn't crazy about, but I am crazy about Bo Nix if he's with Sean Payton, if he has that organizational structure, a great coach, great offensive coach, all of a sudden the Broncos are playing really good football right now. Commanders are A, playing better football, and B, and I have Washington also as an 8-win team. Have you seen their schedule moving forward? Now, they play the Giants. They're going to mollywop the Giants. Their next 3 games are tough. Pittsburgh, Philly, Dallas. Dallas isn't as hard as those other 2. But after that, Titans, Saints, Eagles, okay. Falcons, that's at home. And Dallas. The NFC North winner is going to get the 1 seed. I think it's going to be Detroit. I think Detroit's going to go to the Super Bowl this year. That team can absolutely be the 2. I'm not saying that the Commanders are going to the NFC title game. I'm not ready to go that far yet. But there's certain, this has a very baseball feel to it. What have I said for years about Major League Baseball? Major League Baseball playoffs, and we'll get into Dodgers Yankees in a few minutes, is pitching and it's vibes. The pitching's got to be exquisite and the vibes got to be good. Like, if you go to the playoffs and there's like a disconnect, you ain't going nowhere. You're just not. I mean, the Texas Rangers a couple of years ago or last year kind of accepts that rule. They didn't play that well going into the playoffs, but then they got hot and ended up winning it all. That normally doesn't happen. It feels like that's kind of the case with this year's Commanders in the sense that you've got, first and foremost for Washington, the dark cloud hanging over that stadium, hanging over Landover, Maryland, named Dan Snyder is gone. And getting him out of there, the worst owner in pro sports, get him out of there. That was the first big thing they did. Now you got Josh Harris, you got Magic Johnson, you got a great ownership group who's really turned this thing around and hired some smart people. Good GM. They hired Dan Quinn, which is a hire I liked, who brings in Cliff Kingsbury, which is another hire I liked at OC. And you take a quarterback who wins the Heisman Trophy last year, we know can run. Jayden Daniels' movement that goes without saying. But the kid has a rocket for an arm. is deadly accurate. And if you look at this NFC East, folks, let me put it to you this way. The Giants are a mess. I don't see the Giants. I love Dable. I think Dable's probably going to end up being scapegoated as well as Daniel Jones, who should be because Daniel Jones isn't that good. Dable's going to get a job somewhere else because he's a great coach. But the Giants have a ways to go. They're not coming anywhere close to vying for that division for some time. Philly, I don't trust the coaching staff, but I think they'll upgrade next year, so we'll see. Dallas is just on a downward slide right now. Could this be a Washington Commanders division 3 of the next 5 years? I think it absolutely. Now, you do have to factor in they're playing a last place schedule because they were the second worst team in football last year record-wise. So you do have to factor that in. But I'm watching again, they scored 18 points. But A, the Bears have a good defense. And B, Jayden Daniels has cracked ribs, okay? Like he's beat up out there. I'm seeing them torch great defenses. I'm seeing this kid look comfortable. By the way, and I talked to my man Parnell. Shout out to my man Parnell St. Prue. Please go subscribe to Sports PSP podcast. He was beside himself after the game yesterday, just with excitement. But this is why I had Parnell on the show. After they remember they beat the Bengals, and that was kind of Jayden Daniels' first big coming out moment on that Monday Night Football game in Cincinnati. And he was like, "Yeah, but the offensive line isn't good." And my thing was, okay, but you've got a quarterback that mobile that can really make up for some of those things. And so Jayden Daniels can make up for the deficiencies in the O-line. Terry McLaurin's freaking special. I've always loved Terry McLaurin. Quarterbacks, at least their skill set, haven't always loved him over the years in Washington. Special player, special kid. Listen, Team of Destiny vibes with Washington. I'm just going to say that. And they're talented too. They're really talented offensively in terms of skill position groups. And Jayden Daniels makes it all happen. As of right now, he's grabbed a stranglehold on the offensive rookie of the race when Caleb Williams was fastly closing that gap. Yesterday certainly didn't help his case. Thanks so much for watching the show on YouTube, and be sure to go click that big red subscribe button and check out the other clips and full shows from Carving It Up Live, as well as our other incredible content creators here on the Grid Network.